Hi, good morning, everybody. You're here watching our podcast today. I'm here with Manisha Timothy, who is an excellent coach, psychologist, mom, wife, and we have a topic today for our discussion that is the decision to have children or remain child-free when there is a marriage. So, Manisha, would you mind starting this topic and giving us your opinion or anything that you would like to say about this?
Hi, Amy. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. And Amy is just a little introduction about Amy as well. Amy is a business coach and a life coach, and she is an excellent coach. We've done a lot of reciprocal coaching during our training days, and a wonderful mom and wife as well. And thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me at your show, Amy, today. So our topic of discussion today, which we just decided 2 minutes back, is
Yeah.
that whether to have kids in marriage or not. So I think the latest trends, why this topic came up, was the latest trends these days is to be child free. And I've spoken to some of the couples who have decided to go child free. And when when I ask their perspective why they are doing that, so they're like, we don't want to take that responsibility. We're so happy with each other. We earn, so it's like the term is called double income, no children. So DINC, yeah. So that's the term they usually use, double income, no children. And then there's like, why spend on someone else? And we are very happy, we're earning, we are traveling around the world, we have less responsibilities, because obviously when a child comes in, you have much more other than the financial responsibility, a lot of emotional responsibility and raising up the child. And I've seen a very different trend that instead of kids, they keep pets now. So they have
Yeah, there's a
dogs
lot of
and
people like that, right?
yeah, a lot of people, dogs and cats, which I fail to understand because, okay, yeah, the only thing the pets don't do is go to school, so and probably it's less expensive. But you do need to care for a pet. You do spend a lot on pet these days. All these
Yeah.
spas are not, especially in Dubai, where I stay, it is super expensive to have a pet as well. And
Yeah,
so
because you
it's,
live in Dubai. I live
yeah,
between Warsaw and the village, right? In Poland. And
yeah.
so we have seen like all these different trends in various places, right?
Yeah, so it's not even easy to have pets, especially these days. Even back in India, I was seeing the prices. So it's not as expensive as Dubai, but it's still quite expensive. Uh, I mean, buying a good breed itself costs a lot of money. So it's fine to have pets. I'm not against that. But what I see is they're kind of, changing the child thing, substituting it with a pet, which which is a little different. And that thought of process is quite different, which I realized after talking to them.
Yeah.
So personally, yeah, I have a son. You have three kids, so and I don't regret my decision at all, because I personally feel having a child or children gives you a purpose in life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no purpose. I mean, as a couple, okay, me and my husband, we married for 18 years now. And, we've seen the good, bad in our marriage, and we've kind of settled with the money part as well. And we travel a lot. But after some time, I think all these things don't give you happiness. So, traveling, money, buying
Hmm.
expensive brands. So you need to have some purpose. Okay, you could have your career, but you're going to get retired from your job at some point. So for
Hmm.
me, a child gives you a purpose in life. You're raising a person, you're raising a human, and it's a lifelong responsibility. It never ends. I mean,
Retirement age has changed a lot, though. Nowadays, lots of people choose not to retire or they push it for later, when they just decide to relax from work, right?
Yeah, but still, until what time will you work? 70, 75? Even if the upper age is 80, okay, you have your own business. But what next? Because there would be a time where you will get confined to your house and you won't be that active. You won't be, and that is where your family, your children come in. Like my parents, they're not very mobile. They are mobile, but they're not very independent in terms of going out. Or my father doesn't drive anymore because of his age. So the only happiness they have right now is when we go and our kids go, and they love it. So I think that is their purpose at this age, and that is something which I feel only comes with family and children, and no other thing can kind of replace that thing. Your
Yeah.
thoughts on it, Amy, please.
Well, I think definitely there's a big difference whether somebody cannot have their own child and if somebody just chooses to go child free. I think that if somebody chooses not to have kids, then okay, everybody has their own choice. But I personally would never choose that. I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to have children. I had moments when I was a little bit afraid of the thought of having kids before I ever got pregnant, but that was only because I saw something really scary on TV that I don't think anybody should be watching, really. Um, and I think that having kids gives you so much purpose, gives you wonderful responsibility, and it gives you a lot of joy. It's a lot of difficulty, but it's definitely worth it. I always wanted to have six kids, actually. I have three, and it's a lot to marriage. It's a lot to manage, I mean even in marriage. Um, Yet I would say that for sure there's a huge difference between choosing to go childless and having pets versus having kids. I definitely think that children will hopefully will be there as some kind of a family structure also in the future, where when I'm older,
Hmm.
hopefully, God willing, can have a really good and fulfilling relationship with them. I would love for them to have their own kids in the future. And I think also if somebody really cannot have their own kids due to health reasons, there are so many ways that that can be dealt with nowadays. So I think, okay, maybe there's a small amount of couples that truly, truly cannot due either to financial reasons or due to health reasons. But there is a trend, there's a majority of people that just simply choose not to have kids. And I would personally never choose not to have kids because I think it is so, so important. It also is something, in my opinion, that the Bible says to, have kids because people are
Procreate.
supposed to reproduce and for there, yeah, for there to be more people on the earth, etc. I think it also says that, marriage is for most people, but not for everybody. So I'm not going to say that everybody for sure should, but generally a majority of people would truly benefit from having kids and from growing up and dealing with life. And I think I really learned a lot about life, and I started learning about life in a much deeper sense when I had kids, because obviously you learn a little bit growing up, but then when you have your own kids, then it really teaches you about life, about relationships, about friendships, about responsibility, about dealing with various challenges, with developing your own mindset, with seeing what you actually think is your personal value, what's your personal belief, because you have to teach your kids something. And then
Hmm.
you start to think and validate your own thoughts and your own beliefs. And you think, is this something that I personally believe that I want to give to the most important people in my life to carry on? Or is this something that I think, scratch that, it's a really bad thing that I learned when I was younger and I think something completely different, right? And so I think that kids are great. I do think that a lot of people can be off put by the fact that people say, child giving birth to a child is very, very painful, because it is painful. Um, but there are so many ways to make a woman's experience during giving birth much more comfortable, much safer. You just have to find the right way to do so. There's also, you know, auto auto hypnosis that you can do when you're giving birth. You can have some relaxational music. You can just have a more active, interactive kind of way that you give birth. Nowadays, there's so many people that are supporting. There's midwives, there's doulas. It doesn't just have to be a doctor supporting. Because I heard that also doctors are trained to see the sickness or the bad symptoms, etc. And sometimes they will just go from seeing something that's slightly disturbing to immediate C-section. That's why I personally thought, okay, I really want a midwife to be there that will also be looking for a more holistic, natural, um, and supporting me emotionally, also kind of perspective to see if I actually do need any possible intervention or anything of the sort. So I was really glad that I had that kind of support there because I gave birth to my kids naturally 3 times, and I'm not sure if it would have happened had I not had the midwife. Maybe I would have had a C-section. I'm not sure because I think that sometimes, when birth is going on for a longer time, especially, like I think the second time when I was giving birth, had the midwife not been there, possibly just to speed things up, it would have resulted in a C-section otherwise. I'm not saying it's bad to have a C-section. Sometimes it can save the baby's life, it can save the mother's life, and it can be completely necessary. I'm just saying that for me, it really helped to have a midwife. And I'm 100% serious. It's not great to watch these scary videos of women giving birth if you have never ever had birth, if you have never ever given birth, or if you've never had a baby before, because it can just really scare you. And there's no point in scaring yourself like that because every individual is different, every body is different, every baby is different. There's all these kind of different solutions on how to have a more comfortable or natural birth if somebody wants. I remember one time when my baby was the other way round for giving birth, my doctor told me to simply go on a swing and swing for a couple of minutes, and that the baby will probably flip round to the correct side in order for me to give birth naturally, because the head of the baby is a bit heavier than the rest of the body when they're in the mother's stomach. So I did that, and because of that, I was able to give birth naturally as I wanted. And so just filling oneself with scary thoughts is not helpful in any way, especially before giving birth to a child. Also, in terms of bouncing back after pregnancy, I think nowadays there's so much more awareness and support than there used to be. So just saying that somebody doesn't want to have a baby because they're scared of losing, their good body or whatever, I think is complete nonsense also. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that is one side of it which you mentioned, like that some women are scared of the childbirth. But also, I want to mention that we're talking about people who are consciously not having kids, not that they have some problem, and that's a totally
Yeah,
different thing because I know people who keep trying all their life and still
yeah,
cannot have kids, so we're not talking about them. So I think that is one side
that's
of
true.
it that some women are scared and then they lose their, fit figure. That is one. Also, yes, and then you explained, how childbirth has also become easier now and it's not scary any longer with the holistic support you get from the doctors and hospitals. I think the other part, which is a major part, is that the responsibility part. People don't like to take that much of responsibility and they don't want to waste their money on having another person in their life whom they have to like almost to the age of the child. When the child goes to college, you have to keep paying for 20 25 years. That is other part of it. And so I want to move from this side to the other side as well, that
Yeah.
for people, for what type of people is it okay not to have kids? So
I think
interestingly,
for whoever doesn't want to, they have the right not to. But what is your opinion?
yeah, that's one way. And also, I was reading a study, I forgot from which psychologist. They said that not every person is made to, made in a way to be a good parent. And there have been numerous cases all over the world wherein, people who are in some kind of these addictions, they end up having kids, and then they don't take care of them, and then the government has to, literally
It's
take them
really
and put them in
upsetting.
foster homes, and they try their best that, they go to rehabs, and the government of some countries try that, they get rehab, they didn't take care of their child, but they just can't do it. They're too much into that addiction or that thing. So in that case, I would say it's okay not to have, because if you are not responsible enough, to raise a child, then definitely, in my opinion, in that is it's okay not to
The
have
thing is, I think
kids.
that
Yeah.
so many people would benefit from encouragement to see that it is good to have kids and to have an environment that supports that and
Yeah.
supports any kind of, good tips or anything. And also, if somebody is addicted, for them to be able to try and manage that and deal with it, but they have to want to get rid of an addiction.
They have to
But yeah,
want it.
unfortunately,
Exactly.
there are some cases in which somebody truly is extremely pathological, and that's
Yeah.
not great, right?
Yeah, and you need to also, so for having a child, you also need to give a healthy environment to the child. So I have a case, in from someone I know. So
Hmm.
so this lady, she had a child, and she's not married, so she's a single mom. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that thing. I'm not against that. But then after
Hmm.
she had the child, everyone thought, that she'll take good care of him and she's probably got a purpose. And she's been into a lot of addictions in her life
Hmm.
before, and not having relationships, always falling off relationships with men.
Yeah.
But even after the child, she's not become responsible. She still doesn't take care of the child. So the child is
Oh
raised
no.
by other people in her family. And I feel very sad for that child. And I personally feel that she should have given him up for adoption, because at least the other family who was, so people who adopt are really the ones who want to have child and who have waited that for so long, and to raise a child or to have a child of their own. So they would definitely be taking care in a better way. So in that, so one example which I have in front of my eyes. So I personally felt she should not have taken that decision if you can't take care. And she is never available for the child. The child is getting
Oh
raised
no.
by the grandmother or other, and the child doesn't even know half of the time who's my mother. So he calls his grandmother his mother because she's the only one raising him. So in such
I
scenarios,
think
I'm
having a
saying, yeah,
supporting grandmother is good, but I
yeah,
think
but
that also like the mother also has to love the child and care for the
yeah,
child,
yeah,
etc.,
yeah.
right?
It is your
Yeah.
prime responsibility if you've got the child in this world. That you are the primary caretaker. That's what the term is. You're
Mhm.
the primary caretaker. So rest others are all secondary. Child can still be raised. It's not that children don't get raised if
Yeah.
parents are not there. But I think in those scenarios, it's okay if they want to have child free because you're not doing anything good even after bringing the child to. And it's very, very important, as you know, the early years are very important in a child's life. How that child is treated in that phase. It has,
Hmm.
long lasting effect till his adult age. He will have uh, effects from that, or the traumas they get in the 0 to 5 years of age, whatever, how they're raised, it affects them immensely in
Hmm.
their later life. So in that aspect, I think for some people who think that they just can't have, so they should not have, and it's okay not to.
I think if somebody really, really cannot have their own child, then adoption is a possible choice. But I also think that it's way better to offer support to a mom or for her to just learn more about her purpose in life or to have better self-esteem, etc., and to get on the right track than just to take a kid away from a mom. Because I think that moms, well, I think dads also are really important in a kid's life, but mom as the primary caretaker, as you said, is also really important. But I think so many people should just try and work on getting their life together. But yeah, some people really should focus on being more responsible about their kids. Me, for example, since I was a small girl, I loved to play with dolls. I would just spend hours and hours playing with dolls. I would play with like the big baby dolls. I would play with Barbie dolls, and I would always have this kind of role play of becoming a mom and wanting, to always have a family was something in my heart since I was small. My mom had my brother and I, and we would constantly go with her for play dates where I would see other moms that had kids. And it was just always obvious to me that I wanted to become a mom for my whole life to evolve around being a
Yeah.
mom, caring for the kids. And I even remember my aunt when she got pregnant. I was a small child. I think nobody knew that she was pregnant, but for some reason, I went up to her. She keeps telling me this story. I went up to her and I said, "Come, come, I'll show you something." And I taught her how to put a diaper, like a nappy, on a baby doll. And that's how she learned to do it from me. And then she started telling people that she was pregnant, etc. And so for me, it's just like the whole reason why I live and want to live is for my kids, for them to be happy, for them to be healthy. And you also, your son is doing so well. He's, learning medicine. He's good at sports. Every time we talk, it's always, husband, son, a little bit about the coaching, etc. But I see that your whole purpose is in having a flourishing family, right?
Yeah, and yours as
And I
well,
think
uh,
Thanks.
for
And
you
I think it
also.
just comes a lot from how people are brought up, what they see, and what they start to envision for themselves for the future, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exactly my
Yeah.
point. Like, if you've taken up that responsibility, you need to stand up to that and not just
Yeah.
leave your kids in between and say, oh no, I can't do it. And also, if
Yeah.
you are going through a lot of traumas or this sudden, unforeseen circumstances, I think it's
Hmm.
better to go to therapy or coaching and
Yeah,
get
because you can work
yourself,
through it.
yeah, work on yourself because the child needs you. Uh, and they really need you. And these years are very, very precious. I mean, you know it. You have three kids of
Yeah.
all ages. And I know it from my experience. My son still needs, I still need my parents, in spite of
Yeah,
being a
me
mom.
too.
Yeah,
I think
so
being a parent is a lifelong
it's a lifelong
job. It's a lifelong
commitment.
role, right? Yeah.
Commitment.
Of
So you
course, the
can't.
smaller the kid, the more time and effort it needs, but it always, I think, needs parents.
It's a
Yeah.
lifelong because even after you get married, then you have kids. So I remember my mother-in-law was taking care of my son at some point because I was working. So her responsibility didn't end as a mother. She became a grandmother, and then she was raising her
Yeah.
grandkids, our son, and also my sister-in-law. So it's just never ending, and you enjoy it. I think I would enjoy raising my grandkids because
Yeah.
that's what the circle of life is. That's what gives you purpose, especially in old age. What else will you do? I think I would be very happy if I have like 4, 5 grandkids coming to my house every day. That will in itself, yes, that's a purpose I'll have. To take them to the park or to feed them, and it gives you a lot of happiness and contentment. I think because when I
Yeah.
see my parents with their grandkids or my mother-in-law, it is, and they are immensely happy with that setup, being with their grandkids, and
I
they love
agree
it.
too.
So I think that's human nature, isn't it? We need those connections. It's about connections in
It's
life.
so
You
true.
cannot live in this world without human connection, and that those connections keep on multiplying with time, and that's how you keep living happily and contented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what would you say is the top number one advice for a young person that's wondering if they should have kids or not? What would you tell them?
So, I think the same thing which I've said, that it's always good to have kids. That's because my personal experience is that. And but also being very unbiased in that opinion and being very non-judgmental, I think it's also on them to decide. Like there are some cases wherein they are not responsible humans. They just can't do it. So if you think you just can't do it, so I think then it's okay to go child free rather than bringing that child and not taking the responsibility.
Hmm.
But those would be like very few people. I mean, I know that who would not take up the responsibility. Usually, I think the human mind is to nurture, and once you have a small baby in your hand, I mean, you really have to be a stone-hearted person to not care for that small little
Yeah,
human which you just got. Yeah.
yeah. And what would you say are the top moments as a mom for you since having a child?
Yeah, I think the top moments always the first is when I first saw my son. I just delivered, and the doctor wrapped him and got him. And I think the feeling of bringing another human in this world, which only a mother can have. Okay, I know like both the father and mother are involved in the process, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's the mother, who brings that. And then I think that feeling of getting another human, a life in this world, it was like one of my best moments till date. And also I think many other instances wherein he made me very proud. So recently he had given his early GCSEs, and he gave for maths, and he got 197 out of 200
Wow,
across
congratulations.
his school. Yeah, and I think he was in the top 6% around the world of students who got it. I think that was one of the proudest moment I had, because I think the
Good
feeling
job,
that,
parents and teachers.
yeah, and I think the feeling of that you're doing the right thing. So I think that is the first thing I say, okay, I'm doing something right, that, this has come and
Yeah.
he's on the right track. Yeah, I think that one. And also I think those moments are every day when I see him being kind to people, or doing something for others, or being nice to us, and not getting on the wrong track. So I think it's every day there's some accomplishment as a mother. I feel proud of him, I think. And same for you. I mean, I would want to ask you, what are your top moments as mother?
I think also for sure when my kids were born, the first skin to skin contact, looking in their eyes, hugging them, feeding them the first time. Also, when there was more than one, when the siblings would meet each other for the first time, it was really beautiful. And then first time going to school, and first food, and first time preschool, and everything. I think it's just really wonderful. I think everyday life is really great. Sometimes, obviously, there are days when things start to get more difficult if somebody gets a cold or if somebody is choosing to really misbehave.
Mhm.
Then it could be a bit difficult. But I think the thing is that maybe scares a lot of people, especially a lot of young people, is that they think it might be something that will overwhelm them where they won't be able to deal with it, which is why either financially or in terms of their time or in terms of their just physical or emotional, you know, predispositions. But I think everybody has, well, almost everybody has it in them. And if you don't yet, then once you have your child, you do. It's also kind of like, when you're a child, you don't have a period as a girl, but then your body with time matures to have a period, and it's something that your body makes happen. It's the same when you have a child. Your body will make you tolerate hours of lack of sleep, um,
Mhm.
differences in schedule, big changes, challenges, and you just are able to deal with it, and it's fine. So I think people should not be so scared of having
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
It
I think that's
is,
another point. Yeah. Yeah. Please carry on.
yeah. Yeah,
You're saying something.
no, I think that it is difficult, but then if you're gonna just be scared of everything in life, then you could also be super scared of, going to work at a new office. When somebody's going to a corporation, they could be like, no, because it's gonna be so much change in the schedule, it's gonna be new people, it's gonna be a lot of new tasks. Well, somehow you're gonna deal with it with time, you're gonna learn, etc. And if somebody is scared of bouncing back, well, you can just try and focus on eating healthy. You can focus on moving outside. And I always say that if somebody has the tendency to, with all due respect, be a couch potato, then that's probably either not going to change after they give birth to a child, or they will have the motivation
Mhm.
and strength because of the child to deal with it. But if somebody has always liked taking care of themselves and being healthy, I know that you love cooking healthy, you love also going on walks outside. I also do. I think it's really important. And we also know a lot about healthy habits. Then you're going to continue to be this person after you have a child. It's not like you love being healthy and then all of a sudden you see that the dark side of being sick is somehow alluring. No, you just continue on your healthy habits. So I think people shouldn't be that afraid. It does take a few weeks or months or even years sometimes, maybe, to get back. I have not gotten back to the size that I was as a teenager. And I'm not ashamed of it. I am happy. I'm grateful to God. I look like a woman, not like a child. And I'm glad that my man likes the way that I look as a woman, that he's not attracted to a childlike figure or something. And, I think a little bit of juice and, you know, curves are attractive and just feeling good. I feel so good about my body compared with what I was as a teenager. I would dissect every little part of myself and every little centimeter. Now I so appreciate everything that my body can do, that I have kids because my body produced the kids. And I also try and focus if I have a day where I eat a little bit more, or a month, or whatever, or a year even, then I will just get different size of clothes, like even if it's one size difference or something. You don't have to fit your clothes have to fit you. And I think that's a big mindset change that comes as you mature, as you have kids. And I also learned not to get rid of some of my sizes of clothing because weight can fluctuate so much depending on hormones, depending on even the season. I know when it's colder here, I will still go on walks, but a little bit less frequently. And then I will just have to pull out my size bigger jeans, and it's not the end of the world. But as a teenager, that would have been my everyday focus, like what my weight is, etc. So I think it's just so freeing and you become so much more confident, right?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, and anyways, I think whether you have kids or you don't have kids, what your size is as a teenager won't be the same when you're in your
Yeah,
30s or
exactly.
40s or 50s. It's going to change irrespective. It has nothing to do with you giving birth. I know ladies who are not married and not have kids still, their weight, uh, their body shape changes. It's just, I think, the way you are, your body's meant to kind of mature. It has nothing
Yeah,
to do with a childbirth, I feel. And yes, I think you're correct that another thing of seeing it is not getting body shamed about it, because
yeah,
it is just accepting yourself. And also, I think when I was pregnant and I was very young that time, in my early 20s,
yeah.
and so when I got pregnant, I used to feel, oh my God, I look so ugly now with this tummy, and what do I do? And most of the girls of my
That's
age
so
were not
beautiful.
married. I'm not married, yeah. But I remember I used to get so many compliments, when I used to go out, and women used to come and say, oh, you look so nice, and how much, like, how long are you into pregnancy? and
Yeah.
when is your delivery? And I got so much of love and affection that time, and there was no body shaming. I don't think anyone does body shame when you're pregnant, and I started,
Well,
enjoying
actually, yeah,
that.
I did hear a few stupid comments, but
Probably the meanest of people must have got in contact with you. But I think usually when I see women today who are pregnant, I just say hello and just ask. And they glow. I think women really glow when
yeah,
they are pregnant. So yeah, anyways, I'm not very conscious of my body image. I am conscious how I dress up, yes, but I'm
hmm
actually okay. I've kind of accepted that thing that I'm not going to look the same what I looked at by 18 or
yeah,
20 or 25.
yeah.
So,
And I think you also start to accept yourself more because you want your kid to accept themselves.
yeah, yeah,
And you know that whatever you role model as a parent, your child will pick up on because emotions and views are kind of like viruses that they catch whatever you're doing. It's not just what you're saying, it's what you're behaving like, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think, yeah, I do remember though that right after I had given birth, my son came up. So I gave birth to my daughter, Victoria, and my son came up, and I had this post-pregnancy belly that was still shrinking and getting back to itself. And my son came up, and he like whacked me with his palm on my belly, and he was like, "Mom, you have such a belly." And I was like, I started laughing so much though, and I think that was such a good moment for me where I really understood that I seriously don't care. It's just a part of the process of like when you're getting back to being not pregnant anymore.
Yeah,
And it's also, yeah, it's a bonding time with your baby when it's small. So all those things don't really matter as much. And I know that some women worry about like what their husband or partner will think when they're giving birth because they're scared maybe it's ugly or something. It's not ugly. It's such a beautiful experience.
mhm.
It's such a bonding moment. It's so important if you want to have a good relationship to have your husband there when you give birth, in my opinion, right? Everybody can have whatever kind of birth they want. Um, and I think also when you have given birth and you are getting back to yourself, I wanted to breastfeed because I wanted the baby to be healthy, each baby to be healthy, and I know that they benefit a lot from breastfeeding. It also does help shrink the belly faster, etc. But I know that even if it just gets one small amount of the milk, it's always something. And I know that
Mm,
I breastfed my first and second child a little bit shorter than I did the third
mm,
because I actually had breast implants before and I got rid of them. My body was not tolerating them
mm,
at all. And it was much more painful because of those implants before. So I did it a little bit longer when I had my third child and I already didn't have the implants.
mm.
But I think it's so worth doing the breastfeeding, no matter how painful or not painful it is, if you can produce the milk. And there's so many ways to get milk going if somebody's like I had a lot of milk, thanks God. But I know that there are women that are stressed. I think the most important is just to drink a lot of water and focus on not being stressed. And not being stressed when you have a small child is a really sweet, cute thing to say. But even though it's way more difficult than just saying it. It's worth doing and just being in a quiet room, and it's going to be possible to achieve it, hopefully.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think there's just so many ways to deal with all these challenges that really make it worth overcoming to have kids.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
agree to that. Yeah.
And
So,
what would you say was your biggest challenge, either, being pregnant or giving birth or having a child and raising them? What would you say was the biggest challenge and how you overcame it so you can somehow give this positive story for others to be inspired, hopefully.
I think my biggest challenge that time, because I told you I was in my early 20s and I did not know anything about, uh, you know, raising a child. And yes, you learn it only after, but I think I was quite anxious that am I doing the right thing? How should I do this? How should I do so many questions were there, and yes, there were people to advise me, but my only question was, am I doing a good job as a mother? And I remember the time Kevin was born, my son was born. He was diagnosed with lactose intolerance within 1 month
Mhm.
of his birth. And when I was told that, the first thought was, oh, did I do something wrong? Is it my fault? Did I do something in the pregnancy that he got it? And then the doctor explained that it's not related to anything. People just babies just get it, and then he might even get over it in another year,
Yeah.
in a year times. But I took that thing on myself and I started blaming myself, and then I said what to do. But then I said I can't be this anxious and stressed out since I'm feeding him, and because kids do take those vibes energies from their mother. And so I started reading about it and seeing different things which can be done, because he was completely on my page. So I changed all my dietary thing. I was off milk completely, all milk and milk
Mhm.
products. And then I read somewhere that soya milk is very good at
And it
this time.
helped, right?
Yeah, it helped. And I started drinking a lot of soya milk, and even he was given a formula once a day for soya milk. And then I started reading more on the postpartum anxiety as well, because I thought I was not into depression, I was into a lot of anxiety. So started reading on those terms and started working on it and started taking more care. And I think, and that is how you learn. That's all motherhood. I'm still learning. He's a teen now. I'm still learning how to be more patient with them and, not react the kind of reaction. So I think it's all learning, and it's important to know that everything is in your control. It's not that you cannot. He's like, you are the mother and your children are your procreation. So I think, yeah, recognizing what is happening or what challenges you have, and searching for and finding solutions or coping mechanisms to that is what goes a long way. And I think every mother would be doing that. It's not me, but it just worked for me, especially when he was diagnosed with that very early in his birth time,
Hmm.
after his birth. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
it.
it's
What
great
was,
that you found a solution and that you learned that it wasn't your fault and that could just get better with time, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, good job, you, for doing that. Yeah. And so basically, I think if somebody really, really doesn't want to have kids, or if they are so pathological to the point where it's just really not a great idea, then that's one thing. But if somebody is just wondering if they want to keep vacationing and just playing around in their life, I think it's way better to grow up and have a mature relationship and have kids because it's so fulfilling.
Yeah,
And kids are the best thing ever.
ever happening.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's all the topic that we could cover in such a short time today. Do you think
Yeah.
there's anything that you would add, Manisha?
No, I think we've covered most of the things. And again, we're not being very judgmental in the thing by saying you should have kids, you should. It's at the end of it, it's your personal choice. I think we're just trying to tell you the pros and cons to the audience.
Yeah,
Like, why is it important to have kids, and what is that life purpose? It just gives you a life's purpose, and I think it is good to have. And still, if people do not agree to it, then that's to each his own. That's what I'll say, to each his own.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so thank you so much and wishing everybody a great day and see you next time.
See you. Thank you, Amy. Bye.